All right. Anyway, so today we're going to start with Jude's pick, I believe, is Hot Tub Time Machine.
Heck
Great
yeah.
White Buffalo.
So I chose the topic of time travel this week, and everybody else got to pick the movies that they chose. And this was the only one that I felt like was...
Alex instantly regretted it.
Yeah, I did. It seems to be a running theme.
Yeah.
Everybody picks a topic that we really love, and then everybody else just picks like these terrible
Yeah,
movies.
ever since we started doing this, that's
the thing.
yeah.
3 weeks ago?
Yeah. Anyway, so Jude, why don't you tell us about Hot Tub Time Machine and why you picked it for this week?
Okay. I forget what year this came out. 2009?
I believe that it came out in 2010.
Oh, okay.
Close.
So filmed in 2009, released in 2010. A group of high school friends get reunited over the attempted suicide of one of their crew. And he doesn't have any family, so they decide to try and lift his spirits by taking him to a place where they were all last happy and carefree and wild. And their first night there, they end up partying in a hot tub in their room, and hijinks ensue, and they end up back in the year 1986.
Seems to be a pretty big year for you guys because the last couple of podcasts, you guys have chosen movies from like the 1987, 1986 range.
It's the pinnacle of 80s.
That was the height of 80s
Yeah.
cinema right there. It was like the 95 to 98, or I'm sorry, 85 to 88 time
You don't
frame.
know because you weren't
Yeah, it was
there.
good.
No, I
Alex.
It's a
wasn't
good
there.
era.
I was born in 88.
Michael Jackson was still black.
Reagan was president. All was right.
All was right in the world. Back to the Future was
Aquanet, big hair.
Oh, yeah.
Metal was metal.
So what did you?
I wish Jesse's girl.
That's Stacy's mom for us, my generation. Jesse's girl is Stacy's mom.
It's a poor facsimile.
Like most things your generation.
Anyway, Jude, why did you pick this movie? Is it
Because it
I'm
literally
trying to
had-
keep us on track.
It literally had Time Machine in the title.
Is that it? Or do you really love this movie?
No, I really love this movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
And it's another one of those movies that Kadish and I quote back and forth on the couch.
Love this movie.
Yeah. And I know I saw this in the theater. I don't remember with who or why or where. But I've probably seen this movie probably a dozen times since it came out. And I just find it hilarious. I think it's truly offensive in a hilarious way.
In the best way possible.
Yeah.
It does
yeah.
have a lot of offensive
Yeah.
content.
Back when like offensive humor was really funny, this is
Yeah,
that movie.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, back in the day.
The actor Rob
Cordry, yeah.
Cordry,
Yeah.
he was by far the one that was bringing all the raunchy stuff into the
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was written specifically for him because apparently, like, he's really like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
No, I want to party with him.
Really?
Yeah.
He tried to have gay sex with his own son.
No,
He just tried to give
he
him
tried
a
to have a
hand.
three-way.
Was it a four-way or a
Yeah,
three-way?
it was a
Three-way, because
Yeah.
she only does two at a time.
That's right.
But
with his mom or something. No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't his mom.
No, it's just a random.
some
Was it?
random,
Okay.
random snow bunny.
He did try to fillet an impossibly black penis.
That scene was so rough. Oh,
That scene was great.
I totally forgot that Sebastian Stan was in this movie. He played the douchebag ski resort guy.
Yes.
He's the Winter Soldier from
And
MCU.
did you catch the appearance of Johnny Lawrence from Karate Kid?
Yes. Who was he? He was.
He was he was the one that did the bet with him. That was like, all right, you blow your
Yeah.
buddy if you lose this.
That's right.
And Crispin Glover from Back to the Future,
So
another time
great.
travel movie.
A lot of good little sneaky appearances. Chevy Chase.
Yeah, it was good.
But the core group, I thought Craig Robbins, Clark Duke, and John Cusack, along with Rob Corddry, they just had the most amazing chemistry.
Absolutely.
Like they all nailed the roles that they were supposed to play.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a sucker for John Cusack movies. Like even his bad ones, I love.
Love them.
There's no such
Yeah.
thing as a bad John Cusack movie.
Yeah. What was that one where he was a bodyguard for Hillary Duff or something like that?
Oh,
Came
that
out a
was
while
pretty
ago.
bad.
That was pretty rough, but I loved it though. It was still fun to watch.
Gross Point Blank, right?
Oh, I love that movie.
Say Anything.
Say Anything. My favorite is
Better Off Dead.
Dead.
Yeah.
That's my favorite John Cusack
One
movie.
Crazy
One
Summer.
Crazy Summer.
So anything with him in it,
Yeah.
I'm sold.
That one with the alternate personalities.
Oh, Identity.
Identity. Love that.
Yeah,
movie.
that's a good one. A more serious role.
Yeah.
So, Vader, you haven't said anything in a minute. What did you think about this movie? Do you enjoy this movie? Or
Oh
you
yeah,
kinda
I love
just-
this. It's fun.
Oh, okay, good.
Super fun movie. Yeah,
Wasn't
crazy, raunchy,
Oops.
boobs.
Oh yeah, lots of boobs, huh?
It's
Did that for you, V.
it's good.
Oh, well, originally Matt picked Hot Tub Time Machine, but Jude had already called it.
Oh, that's right.
So they were of like the same mind on this movie.
I forgot about that. That's right.
I remember I commented last week about no good comedy movies made after 2004.
Yeah.
Kind of forgot about this one.
It feels like it was made in 2004 because it fits into that
Yeah.
category. But
Unfortunately, its
it's
sequel
most
wasn't
of
all
it.
that good.
Yeah.
Most of it is in the 80s. So
yeah, anything 80s is good, I guess.
yeah.
Well, it's funny because the guy who wrote this, Josh Heald, he like the concept for this movie came about because like he wanted to write like an 80s comedy because he grew up on all these 80s comedies that he loved. And he was like, there's only 3 categories of 80s comedies. There's like the ones that happen on the ski resorts, the ones that happen in an academy, and I forget the other one. But so he was like hanging out with one of his friends, and they were talking about like their love of 80s movies. And his friend was like, man, someone should remake that movie Hot Dog. And he misheard his friend. He thought he said hot tub. And Heald was like, wait, there's a movie called Hot Tub? How come I've never heard of this before? And his friend was just confused. He's like, what are you talking about? I said hot dog. And he's like, oh, there needs to be a movie called Hot Tub. So he decided he wanted to make like an 80s ski comedy called Hot Tub. And he couldn't figure out how to do it. And so he was like, well, what if people traveled back to the 80s? That way I could do like a self-aware 80s like ski comedy. And so he came up with, what if the hot tub was also a time machine? And so like he sat down, he wrote this like detailed outline for Hot Tub Time Machine. And he went and pitched it. And I think the first studio he pitched it to might have been Sony or I forget which. But they were like, this is either going to be truly brilliant or truly awful. We're down. And so he wrote it. He wrote the part of Violator for Rob Corddry specifically. And then John Cusack came on board, and the rest of the cast just kind of like filled out. And he I think Heald was also the guy who kind of pushed to get Johnny from Karate Kid in there because he based Sebastian Stan's character on he called it the 80s asshole trope, which was basically pioneered by Johnny from Karate Kid. Yeah. You know, like William Zabka kind of pioneered the 80s asshole trope. And so to get him to come onto the movie in a cameo was like the height of the screenwriters like I'm actually making an 80s movie.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think at one point when the ski patrol dicks are like messing with someone in the background yells, put him in a body bag.
Yeah.
And that's straight out of Karate Kid.
Yeah, you made us rewind
I did.
the video
I did.
so she could make sure someone actually said that.
I was like, did he really just say that?
That's one of the big lines from Karate Kid. Put him in the body bag.
That whole bet and the aftermath of the losing the bet, that was like, damn.
There's so many great gags in this movie.
Yeah, talk about gags. It's so black. Oh my
It's so
god.
impossibly black.
Set the stage for the gag in case anyone hasn't seen this.
Yeah, my goodness. So there's a scene. I can't remember what they were betting on.
So it was a football game
okay.
that because they're from the future, they knew the outcome of this game. And so they start betting everyone in the bar that they were at about like certain things like when a touchdown's going to be scored or whatever. And they're just cleaning up. And there's this guy there played by, Billy Zabka, who's like kind of being a dick about all their winnings. And he's got this super hot wife. And so like Violator, Rob Corddry's character, he's like, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a bet. And he comes up with a bet for the final score of the game. And if he wins, the guy's wife has to blow him. And so
she was strangely okay with that.
Yeah,
It was the 80s.
And I love that line where they're watching the thing. He just turns to her and he's like, "I'm really good at getting head."
He's like, I'm really good at getting head. You'll see.
So why did they lose the bet? Did they
That
they
squirrel.
forgot which one?
No, what happened was they changed history when Violator vomited on that squirrel and sent him running.
Oh,
And the squirrel ran out onto the field and interfered with the catch, the game-winning catch.
makes no sense, but okay.
Yeah. And so like the team ends up losing the game because they changed history,
Right.
Our heroes. And so like in order to get the guy to agree to let his wife blow him, he had to agree to blow his friend if they lost.
Which was Chris Robinson.
Yeah, Chris Robinson's character. And so they were like, dude, we know how this game ends.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way we're going to lose. And so Craig Robinson agrees to it. And then, like, when
I have that line though, he's like, "I don't like you taking liberties with my dick."
and the thing that we got to talk about with all these movies that we chose this week is the time travel logic, because a time travel movie is only as good as the logic of the time traveling. Like, if it makes sense, if it's consistent, if you can like actually think about it for 2 seconds and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's typically a good time travel movie.
I'm a lot more lenient on time travel movies than you are. Like, I try not to pick them apart too much because time travel as a concept is flawed anyway, because there's always that feedback loop or the grandfather paradox of if you change something in the past and it changes in the future, then how do you end up
And that's
in the
always
same situation to get to the past in the first place?
That's always the trick with time travel movies is like everyone's trying to figure out what the rules are.
Yeah.
And the great thing about this movie is that they're all very self-aware of how time travel works. And in the scene where they're trying to figure out like what's going on, they talk about Terminator. And so like they figure that they have to act like the time travel in Terminator in order to keep everything the same. Because they talk about the butterfly effect, and Rob Corddry is like, "Oh, that was a good movie."
I love that movie. I do love that movie.
So they've all seen like the time travel movies, and they're like, "Okay, we have to do everything that we actually did back in 1986 or whatever," and that way, like, we can't change history and have Hitler become president of the world and stuff like that. So they set about trying to
Recreate everything.
yeah, like do everything that they did back in the 80s. Like, John Cusack has to break up with this girl.
Yeah. There was a scene where Craig was having sex with some chick in a
With a
bathroom,
groupie.
and he was just weeping.
Yeah, 'cause he's
like,
cheating on his
"I'm
wife."
cheating on my wife. I can't believe this.
And she's like, "Wait, you're married?" And she's like, and he's like, "No, she's
like
9.
She's 9 right now.
Are you guys going to finish talking about the bar gag?
Oh, the bar gag. Yeah. Sorry. So anyway, they end up losing this bet because they changed history in a way that caused the football game to go in the opposite direction. So the bet was that he would have to blow his friend Craig Robinson. Rob Corddry would have to blow Craig Robinson in their characters in the movie. And so they have this scene. It's almost like a fight circle.
Yeah.
Where there's just like,
And they're all in the bathroom.
yeah, they're all in the
Like
bathroom.
everyone from the bar
But there's
is
like-
in this bathroom.
like 30 people in
Yeah.
there, and they're all circled around them, and they're just
They're like,
blow,
do it,
blow,
do
blow.
it.
Rob gets down on his knees and he's looking at Craig's cock and he's like, "It's so impossibly black. Oh my God." And he looks up at him. He's like, "I love you, man. I love you." Craig's like, "Stop saying that."
But I do.
And the way it's shot, like, he just opens his mouth and it's like a slow zoom in on his mouth where he's going like,
And then Craig Robinson passes out. And when he comes to, Violator is standing at the sink and he's got like jizz all over his face. He's like, "Hey man, how you doing?"
He starts freaking out. He's like, "It's just soap. It's just soap. Relax."
Yeah.
It was. I mean, that whole scene was just freaking hilarious. Top notch, like raunchy comedy. It was
this whole
so
movie's
funny.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Like I like how, so like they set up when they go to the ski resort that they stayed in the same room like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And they had carved this thing in a drawer that says Nick sucks cocks and dicks. And it's all spelled incorrectly.
Yeah.
And when they go back in time, they're like, "Quick, check the inscription." So like they pull out the drawer and it's not there, and John Cusack is like the cocks and dicks inscription's not here. And Rob Corddry is like, "Wait a minute, is cocks there?" And he's like, no cocks. He's like, "What about dicks?" He's like, "No, neither cocks nor dicks is in the drawer." I mean, like, this movie's just full of like really sophisticated time travel gags. Actually, I was very impressed. So like, in crafting a time travel story, there's like a couple different philosophies on time travel that you can kind of adhere to. One is the fixed timeline, which is basically everything that has happened has already happened. So like if you go back in time and you start interacting with people, you always went back in time and interacted with those people. And so like you can't really change anything because everything that you already did in your time travel led to you eventually
being
going
there
back
in the first place.
Yeah. And that's kind of the we're going to talk about 12 Monkeys later on. That was the 12 Monkeys kind of take on time travel. Whereas then you have like the multiverse version of time travel, which is when you go back in time.
It's the Back to the Future version.
Yeah, when you go back in time, you change stuff. And so when you go back to your present, you're in a different like alternate timeline. And the cool thing about this movie is like it starts off where they think that they're in a fixed timeline thing, where they have to like do everything that they did in the past in order to keep their timeline consistent. But then they realize that they can actually like change things for the better. And so it becomes a multiverse kind of timeline thing. And it's got so many like these great tropes that they kind of play off of, like the kid who doesn't exist if their parents don't have sex.
Yeah.
It's very Back to the Future.
Yeah, very Back to. He's actually. I thought the way that they visually showed that, where he was like glitching out like an old VCR. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and like when so the funny thing is Rob Corddry's character, I just call him Violator because that's the only name I remember.
Lou.
Yeah,
Google.
Lou. Yeah, Lou.
Lugal. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
So there's this character in the movie played by Clark Duke. His name is Jacob, and he's John Cusack's nephew in the movie. And so when they go back in time, John Cusack's sister is at the ski resort, and she's like kind of hot and slutty and stuff. And Lou,
And dumb.
yeah, and dumb,
Very dumb.
and so Lou is kind of like into her.
Yeah.
And Lou has this very contentious relationship with Jacob. Like he just hates him.
They both hate each other.
Yeah.
Well, Lou in particular is very kind of aggressively hateful towards Jacob at the beginning. Like he just thinks he's a loser and a pansy. And so they have this like weird, like kind of burdening relationship as the movie goes on. Then you find out that Lou is actually Jacob's father because he banged John Cusack's sister in the past.
That scene was funny too because he was like standing there watching it happen.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to do it, man, for my son's future.
Yeah. And Rob Corddry is like when he's orgasming, he's like Shia LaBeouf, dropping loads.
And she immediately is like, I feel pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Jacob just reappears and he's
Yeah,
like,
it just pops it.
Yeah.
And then he tackles his father. I freaking hate you.
but now Lou, now that Lou knows that Jacob is his son, he's like super like nice to him.
Yeah, super nice. Changes 180.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, he's such a scamp.
I love you, son.
But what's weird about that whole thing is like, so the idea that Lou goes back in time and has sex with, John Cusack's sister and is
Now Jacob's
father, that had to have already happened in order for Jacob to just exist.
But then why would he forget?
They were wasted that entire weekend.
But the whole purpose of it being like a multiverse thing means that, they change stuff. And so like it was implied that originally Lou didn't hook up with the sister.
Right. But then Jacob would be a different person.
Exactly. So like the time travel logic in this movie isn't quite all that well thought out, but it's so entertaining that you just don't care.
Yeah,
you don't have to have time travel logic in this kind of a movie.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
make it fun.
It can even make fun of its own
It's
flaws.
not like it's Star Trek where we're gonna like dissect it with a fine
Which I find that to be a little bit unfair. That we're
Yeah, but-
so critical of others.
But
time travel movies.
The method of creating like a wormhole to travel back in time in this movie is literally a Russian energy drink that spills in the hot
I
tub.
want some of that Chernobyl for sure.
Did you notice? So Sebastian Stan, aka the Winter Soldier, he plays the ski
resort douchebag.
Yeah, the kind of head ski patrol guy, and he's obsessed with this movie called Red Dawn.
Oh yeah.
and the truck that Crispin Glover drives everyone around in, that's an exact replica of the truck from Red Dawn
Oh,
that
I
they're
didn't
driving
catch
around
that.
in.
That's funny.
And
There's a lot of Red Dawn references in this.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like,
Oh, yeah.
gotta get them, man. They're Russians or something.
They're Ruskies.
And then his buddy's like, yeah, but what if they're like not,
Yeah.
I love that movie.
and Sebastian Stan's like, look, I'm an American.
He's so patriotic.
I bet I've seen that movie 50 times.
I don't think I've ever seen the original one.
So
I
good.
may have seen like half of the one with Chris Hemsworth in it, but
So good.
Not
dude.
the same.
No, I doubt it is. I'm just saying. Patrick Swayze was in
Patrick
it.
Swayze.
Rob Lowe.
Yeah.
Rob Lowe
Leah
was
Thompson.
in it too? What? Leah Thompson was in it too? Dang. Yeah, I got to go watch that.
Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen was it? So it was like The Outsiders just reorganized and made the Red Dawn movie.
Well, I think
Was Tom Cruise in it?
No. But one of the great gags in this movie that I loved was, so Crispin Glover plays the bellboy at the ski resort.
Yeah.
And when we first see him, like, he's missing an arm.
And he hates the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's just like so bitter and like mean and angry. And so like back in the 80s, he's actually like a very nice guy and he's got both arms. And the entire...
And he's like an ice sculpting chainsaw champion.
and so like the entire movie, like every time we see Crispin Glover, he's doing something that puts his arm in jeopardy, like inadvertently. And all the characters just stop and they're like, is this when he loses his arm?
Yeah. And every time he doesn't lose his arm, Lou gets irate.
Yeah, he gets really disappointed. It's like, oh man,
He's like,
I thought this was the time.
robbed.
That's funny.
Like everything about this movie is funny. And like John Cusack, there's a point where like he was going to break up with this girl like he had to in the past. And she ends up breaking up with him first.
She stabs him in the face with a fork.
Yeah. And
a plastic fork.
And he gets really like depressed because, you know, he's going through a breakup. And
She was this great white buffalo.
Yeah, and he puts on like his, all these clothes and stuff, and it turns out that the overcoat that he wore, like the long kind of duster jacket, was the same jacket he wore in Say Anything.
I was going to say.
When he was holding up the
it looks
boombox.
really familiar.
Yeah, like that was all very specific because I think like this movie happened in a year where John Cusack had like his most iconic 80s movies come out, and so he wanted to kind of like do a callback to that.
That's nice. That's a nice little nod.
Mm-hmm. And this movie also has the best titular line I've ever seen in a film.
Titular?
Titular.
That's a big word, Kadish.
Yes.
As in title?
Yeah, as
in
in the
title, not
yeah.
as in 80s tits.
Is that the word of the day?
Yeah, titular.
Titular.
But the moment where Craig Robinson looks in the camera and says, it's like a hot tub time machine. And then he just deadpans in the camera, like breaks that fourth wall. It's like, so good.
We got to do a subject podcast where any movie that breaks the fourth wall, that would be fun.
That's a good one.
And Chevy Chase, we haven't talked about him.
Yeah, Chevy Chase was the hot tub time machine repairman who keeps just like disappearing. He was
like the gatekeeper of time.
Yeah.
yeah. So like he's like the trope of like the wise, like kind of metaphysical being who is kind of like there to guide the heroes.
Yeah.
And they keep playing off that where like everything that Chevy Chase says in this movie can be taken as like, you know, instructions on time travel.
Yeah.
But it's so like obscure that like, you know.
There was one time where he was telling this girl was at a cigarette machine, kind of like a cigarette vending machine.
Yeah.
He's like, you really don't need to do that. And she kind of looks at him all weird, and then the guy comes and interrupts him. They have a scene together, and then he just like disappears, and you see the girl still standing there trying to get the cigarettes out of the machine. It was just his appearance and disappearance is what the gag was for his character, because it was so frustrating to like, you're trying to get a hold of this guy because they wanted to fix the time machine. They knew he was the one who was going to do it, but every time they try to get a hold of him, he's just gone.
Yeah.
Well, it's a play off those mentors who like give the heroes like just enough advice, but never straight out tell them what they need to do.
Yeah.
And like
It's very frustrating.
Yeah, and every like all four of the crew members in this movie are just like, they get so pissed off. They're like, dude, just tell us. like you obviously know what's going on here. And he's like, I do know what's going on here. You got a malfunctioning hot tub.
Yeah. He's like, what did he say about the thing? He's like, it's got some like weird gooey like stuff stuck in it or whatever.
The Chernobyl.
Yeah. Thought it was pretty
Chernobyl.
funny.
Yeah, this movie had comedy, had boobs, had action.
It was yeah.
It's got everything you need.
Yep.
But the thing I like most about it is like, so if all of us traveled back in time, we'd probably do what these guys did, where it's like Craig Robinson's character. He always regretted kind of bombing at his like little, concert that happened during that summer. And when he goes back in time, he just steals a
song from the future.
Black Eyed Peas song from the future and sings it, and everyone's just like, "Oh, this is amazing!"
Yeah.
So like they use their knowledge of the future to kind of like get a leg up on the past and become like cooler people. Than
That's
they
the
were.
big reveal at the end. Yeah, that's the big reveal at the end is that Lou stays behind after he sends everybody into the hot tub once it's fixed and they go back to present day. he stays behind because he realizes he's happier and he can make a lot of changes in his life that would lead him down a better path. And so when they get into the present day and they find out that Google's name has been changed to Lugal, like basically Lou is just like
taking over the world,
invested in all these huge companies, and he's become like a multi-billionaire. He's like, I'm over here on my yacht. And he's got some $1 billion yacht. He's playing around with a bunch of, he's got his kid. It was Jacob. I can't remember what happens to Jacob. Jacob shows up and he's like, his life is completely different.
He's in Motley Lou.
Yeah.
So Lou, and they say like Lugal, really? And he's like, oh, it's just a little multi-billion-dollar, side project I did after the band broke up. And they're like, you were in a band? He's like,
my real passion.
Yeah, my real passion is music. And then like the whole, like over the credits, throughout the movie, like Lou is just obsessed with Motley Crue. And so like he's just singing this Motley Crue song like throughout the entire movie.
And even when he was trying to kill himself, he was singing Home Sweet Home.
Yeah. And so at the end of the movie, it's revealed that Lou started up Motley Crue but called it Motley Lou. And he recruited like Nikki Sixx and like basically like everyone but the lead singer from Motley Crue, Vince Neil. Yeah. And so like he was Vince Neil basically. And he became this famous rock and roll star. And it was a great gag. It was really good.
And like all of the like behind the scenes shots of actual like concerts and stuff, they like reshot and put Lou in.
And I think Lou has like one of the best lines in the movie where he's in the hospital and he's like, I didn't try to kill myself. Okay, if I was going to kill myself, I would have done it right. Shotgun to the dick.
It's Matt's favorite part.
I love that line. It's such a good line.
All right. Final thoughts on Hot Tub Time Machine. Matthew Vader, recommended for our listeners. Go check
it's
it out.
a great movie.
Favorite part?
Fun. I don't know. It's just a good movie. It's fun.
Boobs.
Favorite part? Boobs. Copy. Jude,
Always.
favorite part? And would you recommend it?
I love the part when Craig Robinson is killing it on stage and he like does that backflip and he's like and running. I love that part. It just gets me. I love it. I recommend it.
Right on.
Yeah, the music in this movie is phenomenal as well. It's really good.
Yeah, I agree.
I think my favorite part was Lou having sex with Jacob's mom. He's just like yelling like these
Random names,
random words as he's like orgasming, and everyone's just sitting outside just like cringing as they hear him having sex. It's just so funny. And then like after it's all said and done, like she's just like, I feel pregnant.
I think my favorite part, anything with John Cusack, I love. He's a favorite of mine. But besides that, I think the surprise cameo by Sebastian Stan, like I totally forgot he was in this movie.
It wasn't a cameo. He wasn't famous when this movie was made.
Okay.
Like he was just cast.
Yeah. Okay. So my favorite, like now famous, but then wasn't cast member would be Sebastian Stan as the ski resort douchebag.
I had to point out to Jude, I was like, you recognize that guy? She's like, no.
I
Yeah.
did.
He was he was young, like super young.
A lot less buff too.
Yeah. A lot less buff. But I love that, and I love the Red Dawn references and all that stuff. It was cool. This is a great movie, a lot of fun. I wouldn't dive too deep into the time travel logic because it kind of falls apart, but that's kind of what makes the movie.
But as a time travel movie, it works really well. And I think, like, if you look at the sequel to this movie, the sequel wasn't very good.
There's a sequel?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Time
that.
Machine
It's
2.
called Hot Tub Time Machine 2.
No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
How
it's-
original.
And it's not good. It really isn't.
Does it have the same cast, or is it just like
Everyone but John Cusack came back.
No, that's why it's terrible.